Good.
Fantastic. Okay. All right, good. Well, welcome. We'll make this work. This is how we do it in real estate. This is a great example of pivoting when things go left. You just gotta zig and zag to how it works, whether it's changes in the industry or changes to daily, day-to-day stuff that happens. That's that. Okay, so great. We have Armida and Manuel on here. Wonderful. I'm Michelle. Yay. Thank you for being here.
Well,
A couple things to talk about. Let's see. So one, and Manuel is going to be great um, to bounce some things off of, because I wanted Manuel to talk a little bit about his mortgage side of the business and today's mortgage rates. Where do you get, well, it's probably going to be different where you get your mortgage information from than the regular rest of the people in the real estate industry. I go to Housing Wire and grab my mortgage information there on a regular basis. So what can you tell us, Manuel, about your lending side of your life?
oh, I don't think he has voice.
Oops, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm having some technical difficulties, so bear with me. Um, so as far as rates is concerned, it's great that there's a lot of little mortgage nuggets from many different sources. Um, Market Watch is a good one. If you really want to keep an eye on where the market is and things like that, you want to take a look at the 10-year bond um, on the stock market. And Market Watch is a great resource for that. Um, the only thing that I would recommend though is if you really want to get an eye for something specific, because every scenario is different. You want to get a hold of the loan officers you're working with, or you can reach out to me and I can actually price out your scenario, which always, in my opinion, is the best source to get your daily rates. Because if you don't get the precise, you know, how could I say this, uh, factors involved in the pricing, it could literally be the difference between a quarter to a 0.5% rate difference of the national average, for example. So if they're announcing FHAs at 6.875 and conventionals at 7.375, and you price that scenario out with a 660, 700 credit score without elite pricing and other important factors, you're going to end up getting, 7.5, 7.875, and that's at par, which means zero cost, right? Um, and I'm not going to get too nerdy on everybody, okay? But I'm going to just keep it general. And when it's par pricing, it just means there's no cost to the borrower, but there's also no credit. Okay. And those are the two options that you can choose when choosing the interest rate for a client or borrower. But I would always suggest, if you have a specific scenario, go out there. If you want to just be general, go to Market Watch and just keep an eye on rates, where you can make kind of like a general statement. Rates are going up, rates are going down, rates are trending up, rates are trending down. I would stick to that type of verbiage when marketing, not just for compliance purposes, but also so you don't shoot yourself in the foot and set the wrong expectations for borrowers. Because let me tell you, when it comes to rates and costs, they want it down to the 0.00 factor and to the last cent. Is my experience.
And how often are rates changing every day? Are they really truly changing every hour?
So rates change every time there's a major influx and change in whatever the bond or whatever the index for which these interest rates are being compared to. Okay, because there's two parts to an interest rate. There's the index which is, you know, the where they're generating the investor funds for the interest rates. And then there's the margin, which is, you know, each lending firm's profit. And so you combine both of them and that's your interest rate. Okay. So let's use prime as an example. Prime right now is closer to 8.5 or something like that. I didn't check this morning, but if you check what prime is, you add 1 point to 1.5 points to that, and that's your interest rates for most commercial rates and or home equity lines of credit. You look at the 10-year bond, and that is your base for FHA and conventional rates. Okay. And when you choose, let's say, a different term, like you have a borrower who, you know, is an affluent borrower, wants to buy a $3 million house, finances half of it, but he only wants a 15-year term. That is a different index for rates, which he may get up to an entire point better pricing. And not a point in cost, but a point as an actual interest rate point. Okay. Because that's the difference. A lot of people mix up the point system because it's used so generally. You want to make sure that you differentiate, you know, what is the interest rate and what is the cost of the interest rate. Okay. And most people refer to the points as the cost of the interest rate. Right.
Right.
Yeah. And just to give you guys a taste of what it is, one entire interest rate point will equal to almost 3.5, 2 3/4 to 3.5 cost points to reduce it, one entire interest rate. So let's say par pricing right now is at 8% and you want to get it down to 7%. That's going to cost the borrower a significant amount of money. And just to give you perspective, it could be anywhere from $15,000 to $30,000, just depending on the loan size, because these percentages go off the loan amount. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So as you're making offers, and you guys hear about these 2-1 buy downs and all these other little special quick pricing fixes, take into consideration that seller credit, the borrower's funds to close, and things like that, so that you can help negotiate the best overall transaction for the client.
Now, I heard something today, and maybe you can elaborate on this and tell me if this is Facebook fake or this is something that's real.
Okay.
I don't know how to put it. Instagram, whatever, you start seeing all these things on the internet. So I heard that, you know, back 2 years ago when we got rates like at phenomenal rates, 2.7, 1 point, whatever.
Mhm.
If we find out what the seller it has as their loan on their house, that they have that rate, if it's assumable, then you with the buyer can work to help get the buyer, if it's assumable loan on the seller side, that they have that type of a loan, that we can get that rate and transfer it to them. I don't understand a little bit of that, but I mean, it makes sense, but I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, so assumption of financing has existed for many years and is very big in the auto and mortgage side. But specifically to your scenario, it does exist. It is fact. However, the lender has to approve it. And the odds of the lender approving such a transaction really will depend on the lender and their business practices.
And the buyer's FICO, right? And
Well, it's not just their FICO. It's so and I actually literally went through this 2 years ago with one of my older clients. You know, husband and wife, they got divorced, and the husband wanted to take everything with him and leave all assumption finances to the wife. And so we went through the process, and they were denied because of a debt to income ratio, which I calculated was on point, and it made absolutely no sense why they didn't weren't eligible, or why didn't they qualify for that? So, it's hard for me with those precise numbers to look people in the eyes and tell them I don't understand why the bank made this decision. But yeah, to answer your question, it is fact. It does exist. It's just not very common that it actually happens. And they I can only assume that they have extremely strict guidelines for accepting these type of assumptions, to where they might want a 740 or greater credit score, along with maybe a debt to income ratio of like 36%. And truth be told, I refinanced a lady who didn't do a mortgage since 1983, and asked me if her DTI was more than 26%, it wouldn't work out. And I was like, oh my God, that's what it was in 83? Wow, I didn't know. So things have changed. They've become more lenient, but nonetheless, nothing is guaranteed, even when the numbers do make sense, because in the end, they have discretion.
Mhm.
And if it doesn't make sense to the lender, they don't have to lend on it.
Well, this was a big guy, Neil Holm, I think. He's I don't know if you heard of him, or I think that's what his name is. But he's pretty big on Instagram, and he came out with that today. And I'm sure that's gonna probably put a lot of thought in people's mind, thinking because rates are going up and they're thinking of ways to, whether it works or not, to get people
Mhm.
to get a better rate.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, it would be fantastic, but just my own opinion about it,
Yeah,
banks want to make the most amount of money possible,
I'm sure.
and they want to keep this system flowing to, keep the cash cow flowing. Let's face it, that's the reality of it.
So with elections coming up, obviously, I feel like the rates are just, they didn't do anything last week. That, I don't know if it's just going to be a steady thing, just
Hmm.
whenever it's election year, or, as it gets closer to elections, can we maybe assume that rates might start tapering off or trending down?
Well, it depends on the winning party,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? Um,
Very much.
and I'm not going to sit here and say one or the other is going to guarantee one or the other, because, you know, I'll say this: Trump was, probably like the biggest, mogul for, or lobbyist for, leniency, financing, tax breaks, etc. And rates went up when he started his administration,
Hmm.
and he started the trend. So I think there's greater powers to be that, control the whole situation. But I have seen a trend. It's 5 to 7 years, and they start the whole cycle all over again. And right now, from where things were in 2022, 21, we're hitting that 3-year mark. So I would expect no more than 5 to 6 years for the rates to really start to ramp downward.
But
Okay.
I don't think I mean, my personal opinion, I don't think they'll ever go back to the twos or whatever. I think that was just
Well, it,
but
it just depends. It just depends on the strategy. And I'm going to get really, really specific. Okay. When these indexes are bought by investors, they're bought at the lowest rate possible, which is when everybody was, we experienced the low rates.
Mhm.
So they're buying them at this point. Right now, they're selling them, and they're selling them, and they continue to sell until they're out, or at a limit where they feel comfortable. And that's when the reverse is going to happen. The rates are going to go low so that they can start buying again. That's how they make their money. It's a widely known fact, but without the widely known.
Mhm.
So it's public information, but just nobody really understands it
Yeah.
or takes the time to explain it properly. And so when you look at these trends, it's no different than looking at value trends,
Mm.
right? In 2016, everything was fantastic. Values were the highest ever. And that's when I started the business, FYI. That's why I mentioned 2016 a lot. Towards the end of the year, we started seeing values starting to drop just a tad. Well, by December, by the start of December, this market officially became a soft market for, I want to say, 7 out of the 10 biggest lenders, retail lenders at the time. And what a soft market means is that it's a declining market. It's soft. It's not consistently appreciating. So when it comes to value, you know, I do a lot of research, um, and you really got to start looking at some of the comparables that start to occur when people, the actual buyers, realize that they're put in a position to overbid on an area they don't really want to live in. And so that'll start the trend, that'll start the market being soft and things like that. Also foreclosures, that's a big one. You see a lot of foreclosures, it'll start diminishing values because then properties start getting resold. You guys are familiar with the REOs.
Hmm.
And so when an REO sells, it's a basically wholesale value on a property. And then they get resold, and so there's this giant trend of consistent values that are up and down, up and down, up and down, and it creates an unstable market, right? It's not going up and it's not going down. It's kind of like, you know, it's kind of like the stock market. It goes up and down, up and down. So that's another factor right there for that. But I hope I answered your question.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. That's wonderful. What's the word on the street with VA loans and the AR settlement? Have you, in your world of lending?
So as far as the settlement's concerned, they don't want to budge on the VA funding fee and the origination fees, and just the fees in general, because they feel like they want to look out for the veterans, and they don't want this to be a separate thing from the transaction, because VA rules, you know, are for the buyer lending side. So if there's any extra cost for the buyer or for the VA veteran approved, for eligibility, they don't want to exclude a real estate cost from their current guidelines and procedures. And so there's going to be some tough negotiating, I can only assume, but it is going to be tough getting the buyers to pay, the buyer's agent, you know, and it not be a part of their current max compensation, or max expenses for their VA eligibility.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so
Mhm.
much. What
Yeah.
other tips can you share about your mortgage side of business? What are the best type of loans right now for first buyers?
The best types of loan for first time home buyers, I'm definitely gonna root for the 5% 1 to 4 unit purchase capacity on a conventional side. I feel like they're not being taken advantage enough, and they're being bought out by investors. And the way I see it is that you're paying, you know, anywhere between 30 and 60% of the actual mortgage payment if you at least get a duplex of some sort.
Hmm.
Which is, in my opinion, debt relief on the monthly basis. You know, right now, average mortgage payment on a $500,000 house roughly is between $3,800 and $4,200, give or take, on the interest rate at the time of purchase.
Mhm.
So if you can, you know, erase $1,500 to $2,000 off of that, I mean, you're talking significant savings for the buyer. And there's a lot of buyers with 5% down.
Mhm.
So, but at the same time, you have a lot of buyers that want all the help in the world with down payment assistance programs,
Yes.
which
that.
I have. Okay. And it's
Brett,
not just the down payment, but it's the closing costs as well.
which one do you recommend?
So I have 3 different versions of it with 3 different lenders, and probably about another 10 that I haven't even dug into. But with these programs, the way it works is they'll give you it's an FHA, derived from FHA. They'll give you up to 5%. But there's an option. You can choose a 3.5% only for the down payment. And if they maintain the property for 5 years, then it's forgivable. Very similar to the Calhafa Dream for All program.
Okay.
The only difference is Calhafa had 20% down, and that would be fabulous for all buyers. But they pushed out the lottery till the end of the month.
Okay, I was just going to ask, did you hear that it is the lottery now for the Calhafa?
Yes. I submitted 15 one day
Wow.
for
Awesome.
that.
Wow.
And I just hope one of them gets it. I hope all of them get it, but hopefully one of them. We'll see.
Wow.
I'm
That's
glad they did. I'm
We'll
glad they
see.
did that lottery because, I mean, at the first time around, they just gave out to everybody. And
Mhm.
and the lottery, I feel like is someone, they all deserve it, like you said, but they're going to be more deserving because they actually, are being selective of who's getting this.
Well, let's find out what the metrics are when it's all said and done.
Yeah.
Because I had some buyers from Santa Cruz and Santa Clara counties applying for this program on, $1 to $1.5 million properties.
Oh, wow.
And that's a significant chunk of change for the 20%
Mm.
versus other areas where 20% is, 100,000, 50,000, things like that. So
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see how diverse they're going to be with this so-called lottery. I'm anxious to see.
Very interesting. Well, the other thing about switching gears a little bit. Well, wait, before I switch gears, do you have anything else you'd like to share or summarize about your lending side?
Yes, absolutely.
Go for it.
So I've developed a very good, in my opinion, very, very seamless transition when it comes to contingencies. I'm calling all agents and letting them know that, these contingencies are semi-relevant to me to a certain extent. Only because once we clear a full loan approval, which we call clear to close. Okay. If you ever hear the acronym CTC, start jumping up and down and popping open the champagne because it's all said and done after that. And the best part is that the docs are usually released within 24 to 72 hours, depending on the lender and their process. Okay. If your LO did everything right, the CD's out and everything's ready to go, you're going to have that seamless process move forward. So when it comes to contingencies, I say, look, give me 17 days. On a good FHA deal or a good conventional deal, I'll probably close it in 10 or 12 days anyway.
Nice.
So if it happens to go over for whatever the reason, and especially myself as a broker, where let's say rates go down and they don't want to renegotiate without a fee, or the fee's just too big to renegotiate the rate, I'll transfer the appraisal and use 10 to 12 days from that point for the new lender and still close it. Because I was able to save a client, an extra 1% on the rate. That's a lot.
Wow.
And given how much a 1% of a rate can cost, right? Anywhere from 2 to 3/4 to 3.5 points, which is an extensive amount of money. It's well worth the wait, right? But my thing is, I like being transparent. I'll send snippets, I'll send screenshots, I'll send full documents, whatever that I have that's factual, that can show proof of what I'm saying versus take my word for it.
Right.
Because a lot of times LOs are not honest and transparent like myself, and they're going to lie through their teeth because something's wrong and they just don't want to say what it is, or that something is wrong without saying what it is.
Mm.
So always ask what it is, what's wrong, and if they say nothing's wrong and there's some delays, there's an issue.
Right.
There's definitely an issue. So I would say watch out for that, but make note of your contingencies when to be concerned about surpassing them, for sure. That is my absolute tidbit to save deals and not crash them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love it. And for anybody listening or the mentees, how else can they reach you besides just our little mentee group? If they want to reach out to you outside of our mentee group.
So if I
Phone-
remove my
phone-
face here, right? I don't know if you can see the full
Can I-
deal there, but it should have a QR code in the front. I don't know if you can see it. But I can send my card, my digital card via the group text. That way
Please.
everybody has, my number, email, and my website. I love
Yes.
sharing my website because I actually have Market Watch on my website. So you
Fantastic.
can go and see the mortgage rates there and a bunch of other cool information and all of the programs that I have. And it's funny because I tell everybody, they're like, hey, so can you do this type of loan? Can you do that type of loan? And my answer is like, look, if there's dirt on it in California, I can finance it. So yeah. Yeah.
Emmanuel, that is great. And this is your wonderful added value to the group. And I am just hoping that your business just blooms and flourishes
Thank you.
beyond what you even imagine. And I hope that some of our mentees get a chance to use you and the opportunity to use your business. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good. That'll be great. I know everyone's gonna look forward to that email. Mona, a couple other things. Michelle, does it show any time on your side
No,
left?
no, it's 6:04, just so you know.
Okay. Yeah, I'm on my cell phone, so it wouldn't let me get it today on my computer. So I have no idea if I'm gonna get cut off or not. But I did want to mention, and I know Michelle heard this too, that NAR shared key details of the required practice changes under the industry settlement agreement. So the revised policies regarding the revisions to the MLS policies that we have with our different MLSs in the state of California, they were hoping to put things in place in June or July, but now it looks like it's maybe going to go into effect on August 17th, where the ruling will be, solid by that date, more than likely. But the changes will probably occur as soon as possible after that. But all of the MLSs in California are not ready. They are not prepared. There's a lot of brokerages that aren't even prepared. A lot of entities are just waiting until the ruling and then wait and see how the state responds, how the MLS responds, the different MLSs. But a lot of the different brokerages like EXP are not waiting. They're doing everything they can now to put things in place that are better than just good enough. That's why they came out with the single party broker agreement, and they're going to have about 3 or 4 different buyer broker agreements for us to take a look at. They're trying to put, oh, there's the time thing, 10 minutes. They're going to try and put in place different classes to teach all of the agents how to use the different styles of broker agreements that they're going to be creating, which should be about 10 to 14 days or so, they hope, to get those in place. But as soon as they make them, they're going to put them out there in the marketplace, Market Resource Center. So just keep your eyes open on the workplace chat for those type of informational drops. And as soon as I see them, I'll send them out your way. I started sending some things out, a couple mentee groups before, saying, hey, check this out in workplace. And oftentimes I'll try and tag you guys in the workplace promotions or notices that I receive. I want you guys to be on front line to get the information, but I know you all are pretty busy. So my eyes are on the workplace chat probably more times a day than you all. So as soon as I get them, I definitely want you to have them. Hey, George, how are you? You landed, huh?
Hey there. Yes, I was just through a lot of numbers, but I was listening. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I know you were. Also, California Realtors placed an open letter in California newspapers to mitigate confusion about pending changes in the industry business practices. What does that mean? That means that a bunch of realtors put together, collaborated, and put in into different 40 local newspapers, including California's version of the Wall Street Journal, the LA Times, big significant news publication entities ran a letter that basically says, hey, people, it's like a call out to the people. Hey, everybody, there's been changes in NAR and how it's going to work with buyers, et cetera. So there's this letter that they put out there, and I'll send you guys the link to that so you could take a look at it. That way the public is aware and the public knows what's happening, because there's still so many people that just don't know. Some don't care, some just don't know. So there's that. And I wanted you to be aware of that. Okay, so next thing. So what happens when you meet someone new? So this is a little bit different of a twist now. Someone who you might be talking to, might be talking with other agents, and they're trying to decide who to represent them, whether they're buying or selling real estate. What if their spouse has someone in mind and you're talking to the other spouse? How can you more easily win their trust and earn their business? Do you feel that you can compete and win in any situation in front of any personality, style, or price range? If any of those thoughts, or if you started thinking, well, you know, I might, I don't know, I might be a little bit nervous if I came up, you know, against somebody who was talking about, you know, multi-million-dollar price point, or a very, you know, gregarious personality, or a very bold personality, anything like that. If any of that makes you somewhat queasy or weirded out a little bit, maybe it's time to make some changes and some shifts. Some things like maybe upgrading your presentations. We've been talking a lot about presentations, listing presentations, buyer presentations. And I know some of you have some of it put together, some of you may not, and that's okay. The company has listing presentations and buyer presentations available to download. You can use it, you know, page for page. You can pull out what you like and insert it into something else that you've already created. If you haven't created anything, that can at least be a springboard for you to create something. Where do you create something? Wherever you like. If you are a PowerPoint user, you can create something in PowerPoint. If you're a publisher user, you can create something there. If you're a Canva user, you can create something there. It's all a matter of using those types of resources that are available. If you're creative, if you want to pay out for somebody to create that, you certainly can go that route as well. What you need to do is make sure that you have a listing presentation, have a pre-listing package, and more than ever now, a buyer presentation. Pre-listing packages are newer in the last couple of years than they've ever been. That's something I really think knocks it out of the ballpark for you, because not a lot of agents have really jumped onto that bandwagon. I was sitting in on a meeting this week with luxury agents, and that's precisely what they do to win the listings, because not everybody does that. Do you have presentations? Are you using presentations? You know, are you getting signed for, like Michelle, are you getting signed listing and buyer contracts at least 90% of the time from using your presentations? That would be something to consider. Do your presentations answer the question, why should I hire you versus another agent, or versus any agent at all? And so be mindful of those things. And if you think also, it's not just about listing presentations or buyer presentations, it's also about upgrading your lead generation. What does that mean? That means your sphere of influence, right? Or are you predictably generating the amount of leads it takes to meet or exceed your monthly income goals? Remember, at the beginning of the year, we talked about business planning and what your numbers are for what you want to make this year. How many leads is that going to take per month, per week, per day? How many people do you need to be talking to every single day? And those conversations don't necessarily have to be just about real estate. It could be just touching base. We talk about this all the time, those forward conversations. How's your family? How's your job going? Did you go on that vacation? Or do you have summer plans to holiday anywhere, anything like that? What it is just being top of mind with anyone on your sphere. Other things to consider is upgrade the look and feel of all your marketing and your presentation materials. If you're still putting it together, make sure it all looks the same and it's seamless across the board. Does your email signature match all of your maybe different email programs that you have? Does your photo match all of your photos and everywhere you have information online, on social, on Google yourself? Make sure that you come across the same and not different pictures, old picture from when you first started, or maybe an old high school picture. You know, you want to have some updated information in there. You also want to upgrade the look and feel of your marketing materials to stand out. You don't want to just, you know, print something off your printer necessarily, unless you have some good quality. Spend a little bit more on that quality paper if you're going to be printing things from home. If you can send things out to a printer, whether it's like a Zazzle or Canva or Staples or anything like that, they can get you the right type of paper, because texture is a thing for people. So you want to make sure of that. Also, have your A game on. Remember, if you are on a job interview, every single time you meet new people for real estate, if you're showing property, if you're doing an open house, you are on a job interview, essentially. So you want to come with your A game. You want to come dressed up. You want to look nice. You want to, you know, have your hair combed. You want to maybe, I know Santa Cruz is really big in this, and it's like nails on a chalkboard for me. But when I see realtors, because they live in Santa Cruz, show up in shorts and flip-flops, I'm sorry, it's a business. It's a lot of money that people are buying and selling, and I just don't feel comfortable with that. That's me. Some people are just, you know, have a huge amount of business and can get away with that. But to the regular person walking into that open house, I don't know. I don't know that I would feel comfortable myself personally working with somebody like that. There's one company in Watsonville where all of the agents, every single one of them, dress up. All the men wear business suits, the women probably suits or dresses, you know, whatever. All of them always dressed to the nines every single time. And that particular brokerage, they stand out. Those agents stand out. To me, I noticed that way back in the day, and that hasn't changed in all of these years. They still rise up. They're probably the best dressed agents in the county, I have to say. On whole, for the whole office, you know what I mean? Because there's always people that have, you know, nice outfits and whatnot, and that doesn't mean you have to go out and spend a ton of money. It just means, you know, maybe iron things. And not that you guys don't, I'm just throwing that out there to anyone. So there's that. And then upgrade how you present yourself. Also, and that could be speaking. If you're shy,
Might lose you.
What?
Might lose you. It's gonna end, I think.
Oh,